All right. Hello, friends, colleagues, contributors, and participants. Good afternoon, wherever you're across our great land, and welcome to this special holiday cocktail party edition of CREC Talk Shop. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Slava Fedosenko with Avenue Living and Advisory Panel Lead for Consumer Real Estate Canada. Co-hosting with me today will be our founder and call moderator, Mike Kehoe with Fairfield Commercial. Consumer Real Estate Canada started out as a weekly cross-Canada call back in April 2020 to help keep our Canadian consumer real estate industry connected in the early, uncertain days of the pandemic. In those strange times, 20 long months ago, it became a lifeline to our industry friends and colleagues and has continued to grow and develop since then. With that in mind, I'd like to extend a huge thank you to all of the call contributors over the last 20 months who have been so gracious to volunteer their time, knowledge, and camaraderie to our group. We're so grateful to have you join us this Tuesday, December 21st, 2021, as we reflect and discuss real estate trends over the past year, what caught our attention, and how our industry is feeling about the year ahead. This presentation is being recorded and will be posted online on our website at www.crec.live. I will ask everyone to keep their mics muted and only unmute if you are speaking. We'll be monitoring the live chat for any questions and comments that come up throughout the session. So please don't be shy and let's make this as interactive as possible. But first, we are proud to introduce the new official CREC logo. Huge thanks to our advisory panel for their input throughout the process, and a special shout out to Don Burton and Andrew Fiore at Strathallan for the fantastic design work. So without further ado, one second, sorry everybody. There we have it, CREC.
Very nice.
Do we have any preliminary thoughts from the group? I think Donald, I think you like this one, hey?
I was refraining from comment where we had some influence, and I have to give Andrew all the credit. As you guys know, I was not the artistic influence on the logo. We just transferred some of the information as it relates to the group, and he was able to run with it. So pretty happy with how it turned out.
Well, thank you guys so much for putting this together. Yeah, we're very excited to start using this logo as our online face of the group on social media, on our website, and we're excited to share it with our networks.
Looks great.
So there we go. All right, so with that, I'd like to hand it over to my co-host, Mike Kehoe. Mike, take it away.
Thank you, Slava. Thank you for your introduction and your opening comments. And thank you for your contributions to CREC throughout the year. So we're just going to run through the top 10 industry trends, and then we can discuss them. I'll start with number 10. Just pretend that it's a David Letterman style countdown without the cynicism or weird comments. So the number 10 trend that I've identified this year has been the emergence of Dollarama, the store that ate Canada. With 1,397 stores opened over the past 29 years and 60 to 70 new stores planned in 2022, with each location between 8 and 15,000 square feet. This is a gorilla-sized retailer, and they're on a roll. So that was number 10. Number 9. Consumer real estate trend in Canada. The emergence of DoorDash and Skip the Dishes, along with retail and service pop-up locations where tenants are skipping the leases. We're noticing, if you've walked through an enclosed mall anywhere in Canada, there are a lot of pop-ups and a lot of filler type tenants taking up space. And that's been a major trend that's emerged over the pandemic and has really come to fruit in 2021. Just ask Linda Farah at Pop Up and Go, the Canadian firm that specializes in pop-up leasing, and it's an amazing trend. So let's move on to trend number 8. The Great Resignation, where many professionals left corporate life to work from home and start their own ventures. This set off an armada of entrepreneurs to start new retail and restaurant ventures and lease space. We've seen that evolving in our market, and I'm sure it's common across the country. Let's move on to trend number 7. Retailers kept their customers close, their suppliers closer, and their landlords on speed dial. Store and restaurant owners got to know their landlords up close and very personal in 2021, a trend that continued from 2020, where there were rent relief, rent abatements, rent forgiveness, all kinds of lease amendments. This trend continued in 2021, and it kept some of us advisors very busy, and it's been an interest. Let's move on to trend number 6. Healthcare workers were hailed as the pandemic heroes. Consumer real estate professionals who lease, manage, and administrate retail venues across the country are also heroes, keeping the stores and restaurants open and leased to supply the nation with goods, services, and food from coast to coast to coast. Without us and our CREC colleagues, the shopping center and dining experience in Canada would be a lot different than it is today, and it will be different again in the future. Let's move on to trend number 5. Retail happens everywhere, from online to bricks and mortar stores, from restaurants to food trucks, even on your phone. Stacked Market, 100,000 square foot shopping experience designed entirely out of shipping containers, opened in Toronto this year. What's next? Wherever and whatever it is in Canada, it will involve our CREC colleagues who are attending this cocktail party. Trend number 4, the rise in luxe retail in major Canadian cities. Luxury retail clusters are thriving in our major cities, where for some, it is the best of times in the worst of times. Did somebody say that the Chanel boutique in downtown Vancouver did $100 million in sales over the past year? Man, that's impressive. An amazing trend that luxe retail is thriving across Canada. Let's move on to trend number 4. The industry talent deck gets shuffled as many consumer real estate professionals change firms, go independent, switch industries, or just burn out and leave the business. On our recent contact database update here at Fairfield Commercial, there were hundreds of changes, with the professional deck being shaken and stirred, along with dozens of maternity leave notices. So we know what was really going on during that lockdown, LOL. In Canada, 38% of workers are leaving due to pay, but only 23% of employers are offering raises to help with staff retention. It's a weird time out there in the talent industry, in our industry. Trend number 3, cannabis retailing. It's everywhere in Canada. Street fronts are being absorbed by cannabis retailers. It's one sector that's been very active throughout the pandemic. In fact, in Toronto, there are so many cannabis stores, they're looking at bringing in legislation to limit them. Trend number 2. the outsourcing of retail leasing from big firms, as noticed by Ivanhoe Cambridge, outsourced its leasing to JLL. This is a trend that is sure to continue. I think a lot of people will be watching this transition very closely to see how effective it is. And we'll all be watching that. So that was an interesting event. And also Ivanhoe outsourced its legal to a major law firm. So we'll see more of that. And the number one trend that I've identified in Canada is the emergence of the gorilla-sized brokerages who just keep getting bigger and bigger, adding divisions, adding talent, expanding their reach. Big brokerages like JLL, Cushman, Wakefield, CBRE, they're really dominating our business, both on the brokerage side, the landlord leasing side, and in tenant representation. So that's my top 10. I'm just wondering if anyone on the call has a trend that they would like to bring forward that we can add to the list. But back to you, Slava.
Yeah, Mike, I'll follow you up with a trend here. And this was more of a trend of 2020, but it certainly continued into this year, is that consumer real estate professionals a lot of the time are now acting double duty as untrained and unqualified therapists. I've gotten to know a lot of our tenants, co-workers, clients a lot closer over the last couple of years. And it's been under trying times in many circumstances, but I would have to say it's been a real positive development in my dealings with a lot of our clients, and just getting to know them on a much deeper, more personal level, helping people solve their problems in which they're not always fixable, of course, but just being there to lend an ear and being a good friend and colleague has been extremely valuable over the last couple of years. And I think us consumer real estate professionals will have to continue sharpening that skill set in the coming years.
Good one. We added that to the list.
All right, we got 11 now.
Who's going to be the therapist for the therapists? That's maybe the next question.
I don't know, Donald. All I can say is that for you and I, our hair fell out during this challenging time.
Yeah.
And Lawrence add him to the list.
Lawrence knows I had hair at one point when I was in the industry, so.
I call it the Dalai Lama Club. So anyway, has anyone else noticed that they would like to bring forward to the gathering?
I would love to hear a trend from the Northwest Territories, personally.
Jonathan, over to you for a trend from the Great White North.
Well, I think we're all in the same boat, really. All the trends you brought to the light, I mean, they're impacting me as well across Canada, especially the large brokers, which, I understand they have a business to run as well, but at the end of the day, they take, quite a bit off our bottom line. And to your point, not necessarily, with the right skill sets in place, but that is definitely the biggest of the 11 that you guys are discussing that have impacted me in the last few months.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would rather give that money to the tenant for a TI than give to a broker. But that's just how I roll. So it's frustrating. Definitely, it changes our business a little bit.
Well, with many brokers on the at the party here, we won't get too deep into the weeds on that. But back to you, Slava.
Thank you, Mike. What's What's a trend that our friend Michael Stronger has noticed in his home province of Manitoba this year?
Well, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, great. So probably the biggest trend from the year has been needing to be able to pivot on a moment's notice with unexpected interest in things. That's not probably how I would have worded it if I had a chance to write that down, but it's just over this whole pandemic, I have been astounded by no matter how bad things are and what the news is cycling, there might be somebody who is still very interested in doing something at any given time. And I'm just finding that there's less notice than ever before from people. One of the reasons I was late to the call was I had a triple showing at a property that is not easy to show because there's tenants in it and they have to vacate. And all of a sudden in the last few days, since Omicron was announced and all the restrictions came in, 3 groups wanted to see a property on short notice, and I had to arrange the equivalent of an open house at a property at 2 o'clock today before the holidays. So it's just like, really? Okay, let's do this. This is insane. I can't believe there's that much interest in this property out of nowhere right now. So I just think we can't overthink things. We have to react and be available to our clients because if you try to predict, the environment is just inherently unpredictable right now. So it can be frustrating at times, but rewarding as well in unexpected ways. So that's my trend. If you can possibly crystallize the rubbish that just spewed out of my mouth into a short sentence, I don't know.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Michael. I see our favorite retailer on the call, Barry Lamley. I'm sure if we ask him for a trend to bring forward, it will involve supply chain and delivery. But I'll let Barry speak. Back over to you, Barry.
Well, good afternoon, gang. I'd be happy to talk about the supply chain. I mean, we all know it's bad, but not only is it a major delay in deliveries, but the costs have gone out of sight. A year and a half or so ago, 20-foot container was under $5,000, more like 4,000. Well, maybe that's 2 years ago. Now it's $20,000 for a 20-foot container, 20 and change. That's how much it's gone up. That's fourfold. So if you speak to anybody that does importing, they'll tell you it's 4 to 5 times as high as it was not that long ago. Having said that, though, our buyers have done an amazing job. If you walked into our stores right now, and this when inventory should be low anyway, and looked at our inventory, you'd think it was pretty good. And it looks okay on the shelves, but we're not getting first choices in a lot of cases. Our best-selling boot, one that we sell about 2,000 pair a year, we can't get. So we're taking second and third choices. And sometimes you can't get enough of the second choice to fulfill your needs. So you split it up amongst 2 or 3 other styles. But the shelves look fairly full. Our actual inventory level, and we monitor it, we pay bonuses on it and everything, is below planned dollar level. But we look pretty good. So I'm very proud of where we've ended up. And our sales are up in the range of 40% and more some stores. We got stores that are double last year. Last year wasn't great, granted, but even if you compare it to our best year, which was 2018, 2019, our fiscal year starts October 1st. So it's always over 2 years, which was our best year ever. You can call it 2019, is we're exceeding those numbers by into double digits in most cases. So despite all this, it hasn't hit us as bad. Now I'm out in the malls and I see other stores and I come back and I shake my head and I say, guys, you've done a good job. So that's where I'm at on the supply chain. sales wise, I projected that we'd have a pretty good increase, and I was figuring maybe 10% or something after our premier opened up the outdoor gatherings effectively for this Calgary Stampede. And it would likely go up well into fall. And if we're lucky, maybe it would go to Christmas. And it has. We've had amazing retail sales. The malls themselves were a little bit slow getting going. Our freestanding stores, like our power centers, did much better out of the gate. And our online has gone crazy. And like just unbelievable. Our online now is equivalent to about 2 of our best stores, and then some, actually. So it's booming. My prediction, and I'm going to say it now. I mean, the sales are already proven as I tell you this, but my projection is that after Christmas, things are going to slow down quite a lot, and there could even be a drop in sales. So that's what we're planning for it at Lamley's and Boutique and Open Road, and everything is a slowdown. All our shows that we go to in the spring are motorcycle shows. That's Calgary, Edmonton, and Abbotsford have now been canceled. They canceled Edmonton first, and then Calgary, and then Abbotsford. So none of those shows are going to be in effect. And wouldn't you know, we have another 40-foot container arriving that's strictly motorcycle. So there's no shows. Now, I understand that Toronto is still going to have their motorcycle show. We've been in touch with them, and we're thinking of actually going to Toronto because we've got the inventory. And we thought that would be our strong point for the motorcycle shows in January this year, because I've been around to some of the shops that sell motorcycle gear, and they're desperately low. And I thought, we'll just scoop the show because we got lots of inventory. But now there's no show to go to. So that sucks. So we're looking at Toronto. I'd be interested in anybody's comments in terms of what they think the chances are of Toronto continuing on with having their motorcycle show open in February, which is when it's planned to be on. Because with what I understand, Quebec, Ontario, the whole East is, they're adding a lot of restrictions. So the more restrictions they add, the less likely there will be for a show.
So Barry, it's Lawrence. I live in Toronto, and I can tell you that the Toronto Boat Show, as well as the Canadian Automotive, the Auto Show, both of which I think were scheduled for February and March, both of those have been canceled already.
I'm expecting the same on the motorcycle show, unfortunately.
Yeah, I would expect the same too.
Yeah. Appreciate your comment. We just had a meeting yesterday, and that's what I said at the meeting here with my crew, is that I'm not very optimistic that it'll proceed. Have you been to the motorcycle show ever? Do you have any idea how large it is?
No, unfortunately not. To be honest, I didn't even know that there was such a thing.
Yeah.
Is it part of the auto show generally, or it's a completely separate show? Do you know?
I'm not aware that it's part of an auto show. If it is, it'd be the only bike show we go to that's part of an auto show.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Unfortunately,
the ones we've gone to, like the 3 I mentioned, they have all the new, like Kawasaki, Honda, Yamaha. They all have huge booth space, and they're all showing their new models. And then there's all the support vendors that around the perimeter. And it's a really good show if you're in that accessory business.
I think the general sentiment here is that either next week or after the new year, Ontario will be moving very much in lockstep with Quebec as far as lockdowns and stuff. The biggest limiting factor we have here is that we have a provincial election next spring or summer, I think. And so that's probably one of the only things that are keeping the provincial government from putting us into another lockdown right now. But given the numbers and given where we're heading, based on talking to a lot of people, we all think that we're definitely headed into another strict lockdown.
Yeah. The other problem that we are having and it's not desperate yet, but we're noticing it. It's really hard to hire staff. There's been too many handouts, and I think there's two things that have happened. There's people that still have fairly good bank accounts and did really well on this COVID on the CERB. And that's one reason that they're not anxious to come back, because they don't need the cash. And the other reason, I think, is a lot of people, when they got away from their office, they found out how nice it was at home and how much maybe they dreaded the drive to the other side of town where they had to work. And the people that are wanting and that have gone back to work, have quite a few of them gone back into a different type of job that they think they're going to like, or they want to take a crack at anyway. And so they're not going back to the same jobs. So between the two, it's making it hard. And retail is likely one of the lowest paying jobs out there. So we're kind of getting the dredges. We get at the warehouse, it's the same thing. But the pay level for warehouse workers, well, I suppose our average is likely about $18, $19. And there's not a lot of people that want to work for that. So they'd rather stay on Pogey.
Well, I'd like to propose a toast to Barry Lamley for surviving this amazing, challenging year. Toast, it's a cocktail party. So well done, Barry. And thanks for your comments and your trends. We'll add those to the list.
Thank you, Mike. It's we in October, we celebrated our 50th year since we opened our first door. So it's kind of a marker for me. My son's in the business now, and he'll be taking over. So I'm looking forward to that.
Congratulations.
One good thing that we have with the Lamleys particularly is a very strong loyalty base of customers. So those of you that are customers already, thank you very much. And those of you not, you'll understand the rural customer doesn't have a lot of choices, first of all, in Western wear, but they tend to be a lot more loyal, down to earth, and they are my staff and the customers, they know each other's names, and they don't go looking someplace else, because we try really hard to give them everything they want. I have a philosophy of my own that I use, and I tell my regionals and everybody, take care of the customer at the store level, because if the customer gets to me, I'm going to give them whatever they want, because the president and CEO of the company is not going to sit there and nickel and dime a customer about whether it was a warranty thing or whether we should be taking exchange because it's over our exchange dating. None of that. Whatever the customer wants, they're going to get it from me. So negotiate the best you can and keep the customer happy. Don't let them come to me. That's my philosophy. And I think in our particular business, it works really well. Do we get taken advantage of? Occasionally. In the scope of things, it's nothing.
Monica, you had a question.
Yeah, I do. Just going back to your shipment concerns and the cost and growing, I wonder if you as an organization or retailers are exploring domestic or say North American produced products. Is that kind of on your radar? What are you seeing out there?
Well, Monica, it's always our first choice to buy locally. And in a lot of cases, we have items here and there. For example, we have one Canadian manufacturer of belts. We always carry his line. Mm-hmm. And the same for everything, but there's only one boot manufacturer truly that's made in Canada, and that's Boulay out of Quebec. And we do a nice job with Boulay. Actually, there's one in Winnipeg too. We don't deal much with them for a different reason, but in all cases, we would rather buy locally, and it's definitely more expensive. But I think our customers appreciate that as well. Like we have a sock manufacturer out of Montreal that I've dealt with in another business that I operate. I've operated for 25 years, and now he's even moved a little sub manufacturing plant here in Calgary. So we have a belt made in Canada, a grouping of belts. Same for socks. and the same for boots. There's not much doing on shirts in Canada as far as manufacturing, so we can't do that. And jeans, of course, are all made offshore. So where we can, we do. And we buy some Smith-built hats made here in Calgary. So it's always our priority.
Very good. Thank you, Barry, for your comments, and thank you, Monica, for your question.
And
Back
I get
to you, Slava.
I have to say one other thing. I get some of my tomato plants from Monica. I like
thought
to.
I'd share something positive, specifically about Lamleys. So I went to my first Stampede. I guess it was 2 years, it was 2020. No, sorry, it was 2019, obviously. So a couple of years ago. Mike was nice enough to host me at a couple of events. Thank you again. And spent a lot of money at Lamleys outfitting myself. It was a great experience, by the way. I had so much fun. I vowed that that would be an annual event for me from there on in, and we have been rather crushed by Stampede being canceled. So I think there's a lot of people looking forward to coming back from various parts of the country. I'm in Winnipeg here, so
I appreciate your comments. Thanks.
yeah.
Do you have a pair of boots yet, Michael?
I got boots, I got a couple of hats, I got the belt, I've got shirts. Yeah, they're sitting in a special part of my closet, just waiting to be put into a suitcase again.
Don't count on any refunds, because if you come to me, I might say no.
Oh no, I don't want a refund. It's all fantastic product.
All right.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you so much for your insights and trends, Barry. I'd like to bring it back to Jonathan, who has dropped a couple of comments in the chat box. I'd love to hear more about the tour companies and how they are adapting to the changing tourism conditions and demographics and how they're surviving. Jonathan, do you mind elaborating on your note?
Yeah, absolutely. There's one area where they found a loophole on allowing people to enter the territories is to allow for private tours. So that being said, they would arrange for a group of people coming from outside of Canada, perhaps inside of Canada. And normally they would come to a hotel here and stay in town. Well, they adapted by changing the way they round up the groups and where they go to see the auroras. So that's one avenue where they've changed to allow people to cross the borders here, because our borders have been closed for about 2 years now. So unless you're a resident in the territories, you are not allowed to travel here. So they, found loopholes to get around that. Secondary to that, they've also adapted to who they're targeting. Normally would be Asians, Asian countries that really come to Yellowknife by the thousands, typically. So that's a really odd, and I used to call Yellowknife mini Varadero Cuba, because and then that's the last place you'd think, in Canada that people would want to come to experience -50. But they do. The Aurora draws thousands of people locally here, across Canada, across the world. So they've really changed the demographic to where they're targeting people now. I think they're focusing mostly on Canadians, and especially the people within that reside within the territories for staycations, I guess, lack of a better word. So they've really pushed. A lot of people have really jumped on that bandwagon. So that's really allowed them, extra income to survive. I have a few different groups that are my tenants, and they're still my tenants 2 years after. And that just, shows how motivated these people are, to stay in business, to adapt to the ever-changing world that we live in. It's interesting times. What a time to be alive, guys. It's just mind-boggling.
I have to comment that that takes a lot of courage to go up to visit you in Northwest Territories when it's -50 out, see the Northern Lights. I don't know if I could do much more than the -35 we have here at the moment.
Yeah, it still amazes me. That people are willing to, I mean, pay good money. It's not a cheap place to visit here. Everything is, cost of living is very expensive. And yet, you know, these businesses continue, I wouldn't say, you know, thriving, but they're hanging in there with our support as well.
Very good.
Thank you for sharing that trend, Jonathan. That's very interesting to us, people living in the provinces.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
Michael Stronger had mentioned that he was in Calgary for Stampede. Well, I have the evidence. There's Michael Stronger at the Blues Can in his Lamley's Western Wear finest here.
That's got to be a Lamley's commercial.
The danger of technology. Oh my God.
And
I couldn't even find that photo if I tried.
there's another one.
Oh yeah, same day.
Never thought I'd see Cowboys stronger.
Yeah, well, it's like I said, it's once a year tops.
I have the evidence. He was eating mini donuts on the Midway at the Calgary Stampede, looking like John Travolta in whatever that movie was.
Yeah.
There you
really
go.
blend in, Michael. Just
Oh,
like
yeah.
the locals.
Oh yeah. Probably been 25 years since I've been on a horse, but you know, whatever.
Anyway, I've been around long enough that I have photos and evidence on everybody in the business. So anyway.
That's your secret to success, is it, Mike? When you can't quite get something across the goal line, you just pull out the incriminating photo.
Oh.
Yeah, it works every time. Back to you, Slava.
Now I can only watch Yellowstone. That's the closest thing to Stampede.
No, you'll be back in
Big real estate
2022, I'm
trend.
sure.
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah, sign me up.
Thank you for sharing that, Mike. That made all of our days better. I'd like to put Donald on the spot for a minute, as far as sharing a trend that you've noticed in the property management world.
Oh, I think about all the comments that have come up already. Like, so many good ones have been covered. One of the big ones on the management side is certainly the brokerage is getting bigger and becoming more active from a property management, asset management perspective. Cushman in particular, JLL, that come to mind. And some of the other comments made in particular, not so much relating to property management, but I think about the comments on the tourism. Certainly a big shift towards exploring your own backyard and exploring local. I know that you know, trying to book you know, a spa, a restaurant, you know, a unique stay of some sort, everything is booked, and a lot of it booked into 2022, 2023. I think also supply chain, as you had mentioned, Barry, as in a Dollarama. We talked about Dollarama earlier in the call just this week, and the amount of false facings and empty shelves was quite fascinating to me to see, kind of atypical for this time of year. And then as it relates to our business, and it was already brought up, personnel, the movement of people right now, and also the talent that's out there, certainly as it relates to our business, but then also to retailers as well. I think that those working the front lines, whatever they happen to be, but in our case, especially hospitality and retail, you know, a lot of people either don't want to get off the couch, I think was the comment made earlier, and then also don't want to be exposed as well, you know, to the general public any more than they need to be. And they're typically the lower paying jobs. And so you've got the lower paying jobs with the front facing. That's going to continue to be a challenge. And I'm seeing more and more signs in retail stores, you know, please excuse us, we're understaffed, and service should be expected to be delivered a little less efficiently. So And then the trend, which sometimes is quite frustrating, of blaming the pandemic when it's not the pandemic at all. It's a business decision. I won't mention which coffee shop, but one of them in particular really got under my skin during the pandemic when their washrooms were closed for most of it, and the pandemic was blamed, yet we were well beyond being able to open washrooms. And they were just making a business decision that they wanted to continue in that fashion. So we're seeing that a lot, I think, on the customer service side in general, that they're taking advantage of the pandemic. But Barry, back to what you had said with customer service, like, it's a real differentiator now more than ever, and it's a competitive advantage. And for those that are going to step up and provide that exceptional service, it will help compete against some of the online and other deliveries of service that you're not going to be able to leverage that advantage, and it's going to differentiate yourself amongst peers. So customer service is critical now more than ever, and that coupled with the challenge for finding the right people, that's going to be a big hurdle to overcome. But those who do that successfully, I think, will be well ahead of their peers.
Donald, I have to absolutely agree with you on your using COVID as an excuse point. One of my pet peeves at this point is just seeing a sign, due to COVID, something like the washrooms are closed. I mean, at this point, it just makes absolutely no sense. Like you said, it's a business decision, and please quit blaming COVID for unrelated decisions.
As an example, I was on the same flight 4 times in a 3-week period on Air Canada between Ottawa and Toronto, and the service was different each of the times, and it was always the pandemic. We're not serving anything, we're only serving water, we have coffee today, and this was all within a couple-week period with no restriction changes, and it was always because of the pandemic. This is what we're doing, and it was the same business, the same flight, same duration. It was fascinating. And the apologies, there's not many apologies out there now. It's just it's almost a matter of fact. This is what it is, and it's because of the pandemic. And I think people's fuses are quite short in that regard. So I have to be patient.
Welcome to the Soviet Union, Donald.
Yeah. Fascinating.
No, thank you for sharing that, Donald. I'm sure we've all noticed a lot of those trends across the country throughout the last year. Is there anybody on the call so far that we haven't called on that would like to add either a trend or comment on something that you've seen over the past year in your experience?
I was going to say that one of the things that I've noticed, especially in the enclosed shopping centers in and around Toronto, is the move away from the traditional retailers that we've seen in the enclosed shopping centers, for the last 20, 30 years, towards retailers who, more independent retailers, more mom and pop retailers, less focused on the fashion retailers. And then also the move to tenants that aren't even retailers, right? So I think of tenants such as Tesla, Polestar, which is Volvo, and some other car manufacturers. We were working with Airstream Trailers that was talking to Yorkdale about leasing space in Yorkdale. And that's definitely been a trend that we absolutely had not seen before the pandemic. So that's it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, and if we continue seeing the non-traditional retailers filling up the enclosed mall space, especially in the major regional malls.
Excellent. Thank you.
Another one, I think, like we're seeing, especially in enclosed shopping centers, is the shorter terms and move towards percent rent. And that creates its own challenges from financing and otherwise. But the other thing, an interesting experience this week as it relates to buy online and pick up in store, or click and collect and curbside. And there was one retailer in particular, it was very evident to me that the sales for buying online, picking up in store, which is being fulfilled by the store, was not being reported as a store sale. But a similar return that would have been bought online, returned in the store is rung through the POS at the store. So you're seeing, the top line shrink from the sales online not being registered, yet the returns from purchases online being registered. And so when you have a tenant that is, only paying % rent and then coupling that with it, I think that creates some very significant challenges.
The concept of percentage rent, the old chestnut, trust and verify. There are obviously lots of restaurants and retailers that are taking advantage of the situation. But anyway, it's a sign of the times. Back to you, Slava.
Yeah, Donald, to add to your point there, my group Avenue Living is actually still working through lease negotiations and conditions, which are set to be lifted on December 23rd. So if we can get that deal done, it'll be a very festive time for all of us. But things have not slowed down in the least. But this is a 4-letter tenant, anchor tenant, that is paying a floor of just covering operating costs, and then a relatively generous percentage rent. And so one of the items that we really looked for in the lease was those additions and exclusions of what gets lumped into the sales figures that then get reported towards paying percentage rent. And we were happy to find out that this group had actually been very above board in their lease language. And they were not pushing for anything unreasonable. It was any order that is fulfilled in the store, but not from the store's stock, would not count towards sales, as in if it had to be brought in from a separate location. As well, any returns that were not purchased at the location also do not get taken off of their total sales number. So that was one positive item, but it's also quite a difficult deal to do, where there's a substantial cash outflow, between $15 and $20 per square foot of landlord's work, with a very, very skinny base rent. So this is a deal that we're certainly hoping will pay off in the long run. It's a bit of a high risk one, but we're all very excited to close the deal for the holidays.
A 4-letter retailer, Slava, it's got to be IKEA. You're keeping us in suspense here until the 23rd. I can't stand it.
It's a 20,000 square foot IKEA. You got it.
I think I know it is, but I'm going to keep to myself. So,
Something that just came to light for us was, there's rumblings, and you hear it on TV all the time, the sexual harassment, business harassment, and all that. So we hired an agency or a company to come in and review our workplace harassment and sexual harassment policy, and build a new one, more modern, because ours was a bit outdated. And so they came in and they did presentations to all of our staff in groups of approximately 20. And I attended the first one, and I was amazed at all the things that you could consider as workplace harassment. And I'll give you a couple of examples that they came up with. Let's just say I come into work and I'm got something on my mind, I'm thinking about it, and I'm walking down the hallway. I'm not paying much attention to anybody. I'm just thinking about, how am I going to take care of this, And they say hello, and I walk right by them. I don't even think about it. If you do that more than once, that can be considered workplace harassment. And so after this meeting was over, I thought, boy, did we ever open the doors to our staff so that they know all these little things that could be considered harassment. I'm just going to get bombarded now because shit happens. It hasn't happened yet, but that was a concern. The other thing I have a concern about in retail these days is, you look at watch Fox or CNN, and you see all the people breaking into stores, cleaning off the shelves. Courts don't want to try the cases. The police pick them up, take them down to the jail, book them, and they're out in 2 hours and they're back doing the same thing. I'm just wondering what's going to happen to the shrinkage rate for retailers. I'm concerned that it's going to grow substantially. The other interesting thing I have now is some of the landlords, one of them anyway, we're signed up with them, are doing online shopping through the mall. And the way it works is you give them product and they display it, or take pictures and display it. They do that for you. And then they make the sale and you give them the stock. They charge 10% and they ship it out to the customers themselves. I don't know if anybody else is working with any of the malls, and we are getting some sales, not worthwhile yet, but there are sales coming. It's slow, but they just initiated this. It's kind of interesting. It's nowhere near what we do in the stores ourselves because we spend a lot of marketing money chasing sales online even. But those are a few things that are on my radar to keep track of and watch.
Thank you.
Barry, how are you looking at the coming year in terms of store expansions or reductions?
Well, we're not looking at any reductions, with the exception there's a couple stores that we were going to close, and landlords came along with such good deals, literally hardly anything for rent. One of the cases, nothing. And you know, we may close something like that, but none of our producing stores are we going to close. I'm always looking for opportunity. The one good thing I'll say, you know, before we went into COVID, or when we went into COVID, and we shut down 100%, all stores, head office, everything gone. No salaries, just strictly COVID and layoffs and unemployment as it went down the road. Well, our line of credit, we were maxed, and I didn't know what was going to happen because you guys are all retailers by heart, or landlords. But when retail stopped, you know, the philosophy for Black Friday is that's the day when a retailer breaks even for the year, calendar year. So 25th, 28th of November every year, that's approximately a break even for a retailer. There's exceptions. So that means that up till that time, every dollar that comes in the till is spent because you're in the negative up till then. There is nothing left. So when you get shut down, you're maxed out. And then on top of that, well, we just quit paying landlords. I'm sorry, you guys, but we couldn't. There was no money. On top of that, we're 2-week pay delay. So we had to pay, you know, 4 weeks instead of 2 weeks to get caught up for payroll. So we had to pay everybody out, and people wanted their holiday pay. So then we had to pay the holiday pay out. So it left us in a really grim position. But with the help of the landlords, in my case, and all my landlords worked with me. With the help of the landlords and the government CERB, and in some cases we qualified for a little bit of rent relief through the government. I'm happy to say that our loan is dramatically reduced, and we're in a way better position than when we went into COVID, for sure. But it was a lot of hard work, and I'm very appreciative to all the people and agencies, government and everything that helped out. So it's a good story in the end for me.
I think you're seeing some of that with, you know, especially public companies where you can see the financials. Their top line has dropped, but expenses have been cut substantially, and then with government assistance, you know, the profitability in many cases has actually improved. And so it's what do we do on the back end of this?
Yeah.
But interesting and scary times early on when you don't know where the bottom's going to be, and there was no assistance early on. It was crisis management, to say the least.
Got that right. Anyway, I'm
Well,
more or
We
less.
again,
survived. We
cheers to you,
survived.
Barry, and cheers to everybody on this call.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for joining our CREC cocktail party. It was lovely to see everyone and have this fantastic discussion for the
Merry
holidays.
Christmas, everyone.
It's not quite as nice a party as Mike had because I'm on the screen instead of in person. Thanks for your party, Mike.
Thanks for joining us, Barry. It was great to see you in person.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody, and a Merry Christmas to you.
Yep.
Merry
Happy
Christmas.
holidays,
Take care,
everyone.
everyone. Thanks for
Everybody.
joining us.
Bye. Happy holidays.
See you.
Happy
Bye-bye.
holidays. Bye-bye.